I feel like everyone has a handful of films where before seeing them, you saw a scene, or a bit of a trailer, or even a few individual shots, and it started a bit of an obsession, like you had to track them down and watch them. For me, one of those films was Fallen Angels. I remember seeing this single shot in a random video essay, and the visual style was just so different from anything else I'd seen that I was completely drawn in. Luckily, the name of the film was given in the video, so I knew what I was looking for, but it's pretty difficult to get a copy in the UK, so it was a solid few years before I actually managed to watch it. But when I finally did, it was great. The visuals are completely unique and like nothing else, and the characters are really fun and cool. But most importantly, it leaves you with that Wong Kar-wai aftertaste that's really addictive and hard to replicate. I'd already watched most of Wong Kar-wai's work by this point, and had even dipped into the films he'd produced too, like First Love, The Litter on the Breeze. But despite sharing the same actors, some moments, and even some of Wong's signature techniques, it couldn't quite replicate that feeling of watching Fallen Angels or Chungking Express for the first time. Eventually, this search for more led me in the direction of a little film called The Odd One Dies. I don't even really know how I became aware of its existence because this thing has been buried by time, but I'd assume it's because of Google searches like films to watch if you like Fallen Angels, and an unhealthy amount of internet digging. Anyway, it was a solid amount of time before I got to watch this, because if I had trouble finding a copy of Fallen Angels, you can imagine how hard it is finding a film that's about 10 times more obscure. But I eventually watched this so-called spiritual successor to the film I loved, and had a bunch of mixed feelings. Did it have that Wong Kar-wai vibe I'd been chasing after? Maybe. Let's see. So you find the biggest similarity between the two films in the opening minutes. Takeshi Kaneshiro plays the main character in what, for majority of the film, is a mute performance. He's gambling away his money and violently lashes out when he loses, which results in him getting his shit kicked in outside. We learn pretty quickly that just like in Fallen Angels, Kaneshiro's character is a bit of a nameless weirdo, and he's completely broke. Out of desperation, he accepts an assassination job on a random guy, gambles away his prepayment, and actually ends up winning big. So now he doesn't want to do the hit anymore, and hires a female ex-con to do it for him. That's the basis of the plot, but very much like a Wong Kar-wai film, it's not really about the plot. It's very character focused and more about the mood and the feeling. One of the things I really liked about the film is the camera work. I don't rate the fact there's a Dutch angle every other shot, but I do like how the camera drifts around, and sometimes lingers around a little longer than it should, like the smoke coming out of one of the 369 cigarettes Takeshi Kaneshiro smokes throughout the runtime. It doesn't have that ultra wide angle lens aesthetic that Fallen Angels does, but it finds a stylistic substitute that gives the film its own interesting kind of energy. Now, one of the big things that gives many of Wong Kar-wai's film their energy is the voiceovers. The internal monologuing of his characters is rarely expositional, and mainly just details thoughts running through the characters' heads.
我们分手的那一天是愚人节，所以我一直当它是开玩笑。
They're often poetic and beautiful, which really helps us connect with the characters. The Odd One Dies does not do this, and because the main character hardly talks as well, he's even harder to read. This can help make the film pretty tense in some moments, like after accepting the assassination job, he starts to gamble, and he just keeps putting more money on the table and losing, and you're thinking like, dude, stop, what are you doing? But he keeps going, and eventually, seemingly due to aura alone, he shifts the odds and goes on a crazy win streak, leading to him wiping out the guy he's competing against. But now he's got a bunch of money, and doesn't seem to know what he wants to do with it. The main character being stoic and all around pretty weird helps make the film uneasy and a bit offbeat, but he's nothing compared to the woman he hires to replace him. Initially when he hires her, he pays a pretty nice price for her to take his place, but instantly she tries to make his life more difficult. She gets him to punch random people, go on pointless side quests, and run to places in specific amounts of time, which gives us these shots where we very nearly see him get run over by what I'd assume are real oncoming vehicles. Watching Takeshi Kaneshiro movies makes me pretty sure he could give Tom Cruise a run for his money. Dude's running around in literally all of them. This film also has a weird, offbeat sense of humour. Like, the score is goofy as fuck, unlike in Wong Kar-wai's work that usually relies on needle drops of pre-existing music. This film goes from tracks that sound like they're from Twin Peaks, to ones that sound like they could be in Austin Powers. There's also a weird running gag where we see people keep cutting the fingers off of this guy. His fearful face is always hilarious, but it's not nearly as funny as his henchmen scrambling around trying to find some ice to put the severed fingers on. There's literally only one other film I can remember that made me laugh at a finger being cut off, so well done, Johnny Toe.
Oh, I think we're safe.
Oh yeah, that's something worth mentioning. This film was released by Milky Way, the Hong Kong film company, not the chocolate. And it was allegedly ghost-directed by Johnny Toe after he took the reins from his protege Patrick Yao. It doesn't feel massively similar to other Johnny Toe films I've seen, which are admittedly few, but it does have some similar stylistic techniques, especially the scenes that are doused in red and blue lighting. I find it interesting that this film seems to be so uninterested in the crime elements. There's hardly any information about the assassination job the entire film centres around. Like, literally all we learn is that the guy's from Thailand, and ultimately, it's because this isn't a crime film. It's a film about characters who have bad habits and make strange decisions, characters that are completely lost in the world that they inhabit, but who will risk everything for a chance at romance. And you know what? It doesn't get more Wong Kar-wai than that. From everything I heard before watching it, this film was Fallen Angels 2. And that's what I expected, the spiritual successor, the secret sequel. But when I watched it, that's not what I saw. It didn't really even satisfy that Wong Kar-wai itch, but that's not a bad thing, because let's be honest, he's a very special filmmaker, and nothing should really hit that spot except for the guy's actual filmography. I watched this film expecting to be a film it's not, but it still managed to be genuinely compelling. If you like Fallen Angels, seek this one out. It kind of captures that energy. But it's not Fallen Angels. And you know what? I'm kind of glad.